away from his home in Mississippi to Cincinnati, Ohio. He was by all accounts a very enterprising young man and moved north after accepting a promising position in the sales department of a local Chevrolet dealer. In addition to responding to the appeal of a job in the automobile business, it's also likely that my father was eager to leave his home state. His parents had lost nearly everything after the stock market crash. They were living in near-poverty conditions as Mississippi sharecroppers, and opportunities in their area were slim. In high school, my father had won acceptance to Duke University, but hard times prevented my parents from being able to send him. He wound up going to Millsaps College, a less expensive Methodist school in Jackson, Mississippi. But even at a less pricey school, paying tuition was a hardship for my grandparents, and with a job opportunity up north, Dad left school early, before ever earning his degree. When my father reached Ohio, the arrival of this gregarious and charming Southerner did not go unnoticed. One Cincinnatian who took an instant liking to my dad was young George Rooney, my mom's brother. Hopeful that his sister might emerge from her grieving and find a new beau, George insisted that the two should meet. My mother, Florence Rooney, was a bright, beautiful, and elegant woman with a terrific personality. She stood about 5'8", and my father, who was 6 feet tall, always liked tall women. My dad was smitten from the moment they met, and he courted her aggressively. His extra effort was justified, as their differences were significant. In addition to being a Southerner, my father was raised Protestant, and for the Rooneys, who were Catholic, marrying outside the church was no small matter. I've been told it was only after he agreed to raise his children in the Catholic faith that my mom accepted his proposal for marriage. They were wed in a Catholic ceremony in the Rooneys' home on August 14, 1937. I came along next November 19, 1938, the first Turner born north of the Mason-Dixon line, and as the first grandchild on either side of the family, I was showered with lots of love from my parents and extended family. Some of my earliest memories are of holding the screen door open for my great-grandmother on my mom's side. She lived until she was 91 and used to call me her little Dickens. We would visit my father's Mississippi relatives on occasion, but living my early years in Cincinnati exposed me more to my mother's side of the family. My grandfather, George Rooney, lived with his 2 unmarried sisters. Back then, they were referred to as old maids, and I got along great with all 3 of them. But despite being surrounded by a loving family, my parents' marriage had its challenges from the very start, and their differences over their parenting especially added to the tension. Regardless of his courtship assurances, after I was born, my father let my mother know that he would not allow his children to be brought up Catholic. This was no small issue for my mom and the Rooneys. I'll never know exactly how those conversations went, but although I did attend Catholic church occasionally, I was not raised Catholic. My mother never spoke of the issue in front of me, but I'm sure she wasn't happy about it. My earliest memories of our Cincinnati home are mostly pleasant. I was an energetic child and spent much of my time in the backyard and at the creek that ran through a little vacant lot down the street. I'd turn over rocks to find little bugs and crayfish and take them home and put them in a jar. I was the center of my parents' attention for nearly 3 years before the birth of my sister Mary Jean. A beautiful baby, Mary Jean came along in September of 1941 and was the apple of my parents' eye. That date was significant because when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, just a few months later, my father joined the U.S. Navy. When it came time to head out for basic training, my parents also decided that military barracks and Quonset huts were no place for a little boy. They decided to take their infant daughter, Mary Jean, but leave me behind to attend the Cincinnati boarding school. I was 4 years old. I don't even remember the name of that school, but I sure do remember that I didn't like it. I went from living with my family in a nice home with a grass yard and a creek hollow down the street to a cold concrete dorm room and a gray gravel courtyard framed by a chain-link fence. The place felt like a prison, and as a 4